In the long and glorious history of the Ashes, there are countless legends. Bradman's genius, Vaughan's magic, Stokes' miracle. But before all that, there was one man who redefined what it meant to win a series on your own. A man who dragged England from humiliation to glory, from boos to cheers, from Botham must go to Botham's miracle. His name was Ian Botham. Over 100 tests, over 5,000 runs, more than 380 wickets. One of cricket's greatest all-rounders. But even those numbers cannot tell the story of the madness, the drama, and the chaos that unfolded in the summer of 1981. A summer forever remembered as Botham's Ashes. Hardly any cricketer in Ashes history has ever done as much to single-handedly turn a series around as Ian Botham did that summer. Yet, it all nearly ended in disaster. When Ian Botham took over the England captaincy at just 24, he was already the nation's golden boy. 6 test centuries, 139 wickets, and an aura that screamed superstar. He was England's great hope, the man meant to drag them out of mediocrity and back to glory. But fate had other plans. England were a mess, the dressing room was tense, and Botham's first 10 tests as captain produced 3 losses and 7 draws. A record so dull, even the rain clouds over Lord's seemed more ambitious. Worse, his own form completely fell off a cliff. The man who used to make batting look easy was suddenly averaging 14 and leaking runs at 34.7 with the ball. On top of that, the press was relentless, and an assault case, which he was later cleared of, hung over his head like a dark cloud. Even his wife begged him to step down, warning him the selectors were holding a gun to his head. England's misery continued. They lost the one-day series to Australia, and then the first test slipped through their fingers, quite literally. Dropped catches, including one by Botham himself, let Australia go to Lord's with a 1-0 lead. By the second test, the press had already declared him finished. Headlines screamed, "Botham must go," while the Guardian politely muttered that he probably could not afford another failure. And then came Lord's. The theatre of dreams turned into Botham's personal nightmare. He scored a duck in the first innings and a golden duck in the second. He walked back to the pavilion to a silence so deafening, it could have been measured on the Richter scale. Botham had already written his resignation letter, but it wasn't needed. The selectors acted first, removing him from the captaincy and reinstating Mike Brearley. Brearley knew the challenge ahead, a team in chaos and a superstar whose confidence hung by a thread. "I feel sorry for Ian," he said. "He's up to the brim with it. He's still a key player in the side." But not everyone shared that view. Former England captain Ray Illingworth called Botham overweight, overrated, and overpaid. Many thought his career was over, but for Botham, this was personal. It was his chance at redemption. And what followed in the next 3 weeks would become cricketing theatre of the highest order.
It was the best thing probably that happened to me.
The third test at Headingley began under gloomy skies and even gloomier expectations. England were 1-0 down in the series. Botham was no longer captain, and the crowd expected an Australian victory. Australia piled up 401 for 9 declared, helped generously by England's butter-fingered fielding. But amidst the gloom, one man refused to bow. Ian Botham, no longer burdened by leadership, bowled like a man liberated from gravity itself. His delivery snarled, seamed, and spat, pure controlled chaos, ripping through the Australian middle order with 6 for 95, keeping England's faint hopes alive. When he came out to bat, England were 87 for 5. A hopeless situation by any measure, but Botham didn't do hopeless. He decided if he was going down, he'd go down swinging, reaching a 54-ball half-century before gloving a Dennis Lillee delivery in the second innings. After Hughes asked England to follow on, the haplessness in the batting continued as the hosts found themselves at 135 for 7. Bookmakers offered 500 to 1 odds for an England win. In other words, you were more likely to spot sunshine in Leeds than see a miracle on the pitch. Bob Willis later admitted, "We had given up all hope. We had checked out of the hotel on the Monday morning, thinking that the game might be over and our careers might be over." But Botham had other ideas. What followed at Headingley was one of the most memorable innings in cricket history. Alongside tailenders Graham Daly, Chris Old and Bob Willis, Botham mounted a fearless counter-attack, putting on 117 for the 8th wicket, 67 for the 9th and 37 for the 10th. He finished on an unbeaten 149. His first 50 was a chaotic blur of thick edges and reckless swings, but the second half was pure genius. It was beautiful, brave, and downright outrageous. Every stroke screamed defiance, and every boundary felt like payback for every headline that had called him finished. When he finally walked off, England had somehow set Australia a target of 130. Just think about this. Australia needed fewer runs to win the match than Botham had scored alone. The game was still theirs to lose, but England had something the Aussies did not: belief. Bob Willis, inspired by Botham, unleashed one of the greatest bowling spells in history, taking 8 for 43. England won after being forced to follow on, only the second time in Test history. On the other hand, Australia was shell-shocked. The entire tone of the series had changed, and England had risen from the ashes. The beast was back, and the Aussies had just met their worst nightmare. With the series tied at 1-1, the fourth test at Edgbaston was set up like a blockbuster sequel. England conceded a 69-run first innings deficit, and it seemed the story was returning to its dull, predictable script. Australia dominant, England desperate. But the Aussies had a knack for finding banana peels in the most comfortable positions. Set another lowly target of 151. Australia were cruising along at 105 for 4, with Alan Border going strong on 40, and only 46 runs were left to be chased. England's players were already preparing their polite handshakes. Botham, however, wasn't done writing miracles. He had been quiet so far in the game, 29 runs across 2 innings, and just 1 wicket to his name. But sometimes, heroes wait for the perfect moment. He rolled in, and with the 10th ball of his new spell, shattered Rod Marsh's stumps. Next ball, Ray Bright was trapped in front. Australia 114 for 7, panic setting in. The next few overs were pure theatre, edges flying, stumps cartwheeling, and Botham rolling like a man possessed. Dennis Lee nicked one behind at 120, and soon after, Martin Kent and Terry Alderman were both cleaned up. Game over. Botham's spell was ridiculous. 5 wickets for 1 run in 28 balls, finishing with figures of 5 for 14. England had somehow won a match they had already mentally lost. The headlines flipped overnight. Botham must go became Botham's miracle. In 2 tests, he had gone from national embarrassment to national hero. England now led 2-1, and the Australians looked broken, as if they would rather pack up and fly home than face him again. The 5th test at Manchester was Botham's final stage, but early on, the Aussies found some hope. England won the toss but quickly crumbled to 175 for 9. Botham scored a duck, and Lilly and Alderman ripped through the lineup. The comeback king looked mortal again. But the second innings was pure fire. At 104 for 5, Botham walked in with swagger, knowing something extraordinary was coming. With the second new ball, he went berserk. 3 consecutive bouncers from Lilly dispatched over fine leg for 6. A full delivery smashed straight bat over Lilly's head. 66 runs in 8 overs before tea, and a century brought up with a glorious sweep of Ray Bright. Botham finished on 118 of 102 balls, laced with 6 towering sixes, an Ashes record that stood until Ben Stokes' 2019 miracle at Headingley. It was clean, fearless, brutal, and beautiful. He later described it as the best innings I've ever played. England were finally bowled out for 404, thereby setting an almost impossible target of 505. To their credit, the Aussies fought bravely. Alan Border, nursing a broken finger, scored a defiant century, and Graham Gallop joined him with another. But it was like climbing Mount Everest in flip-flops. Admirable, but doomed. Australia were bowled out for 402, handing England victory by 103 runs and the Ashes by 3-1. In the 1981 Ashes, Ian Botham didn't just play. He dominated. With 399 runs and 34 wickets, he topped England in both departments, claiming player of the series with authority. From the humiliating Botham must go to the legendary Botham's miracle, he became a national hero virtually overnight. Sure, Alderman took 41 wickets and Lilly 39, but it was Botham, one man, unstoppable and larger than life, who carried England on his back. The summer of 1981 wasn't merely an Ashes win. It was a story of redemption, audacity, and sheer genius, forever cementing Ian Botham as a living legend of cricket. So guys, that's it for today's video. If you want to see how Jeff Thompson destroyed England in the 1974 Ashes, click on the videos being displayed on your screen.